Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar with the Migration Center team, or to be exactly with my Migration Center colleague today. And the topic is upgrade a DMS database and replace storage when you can't afford downtime. Before we start, let me do one quick slide of housekeeping. As always, all attendees are muted during the whole session. Should you have any questions, don't hesitate and place them into the GoToWebinar questions panel so we can collect them and answer them in a dedicated Q&A session after the main part of the webinar. And last but not least, the webinar is being recorded, and once we have it processed, we'll share it with you after the session. And with that, let me directly hand over to Mike, our presenter today.
Thank you, Mark, for the nice introduction. Yeah, hello everyone from my side. My name is Mike Uhlenberg. I'm senior consultant, or let's call me migration expert. So today the webinar is about I want to show you the Migration Center and how you can deal with a database or application upgrade using the Migration Center when an in-place upgrade is no option because you cannot afford any single minute, let's say, as a downtime. So the agenda is some words about the FME group, and then we go into the topic with DMS or database upgrade. I show you features of the Migration Center, especially the Delta migration, and then we talk about different storage scenarios and especially features of the Migration Center which support those scenarios. And then we can go to the Q&A session where I happily answer any questions. About the FME, so FME is a service consulting company. We do business across many industries, especially life science and industrial manufacturing, automotive and such. We are your digital partner for digital transformation. Yeah, we do everything like around ECM, DMS, business intelligence, cloud, and social collaboration, as well as also develop custom software. Tailored to your needs. So use cases you can address with Migration Center. So normally I show that slide to tell you how many or which use cases you can really address with Migration Center, like migration, of course, consolidate several systems into one, extend applications, replace applications, and also do archiving. But today we really want to dig into the more or less hardware use cases, which means you really need to upgrade or update an existing application or a document management system. So you really, let's say, not need such a use case here, but you need to migrate because of that reason. You need to upgrade something, maybe the database, maybe the application server, and maybe you cannot afford downtime, or maybe there are other reasons that you need to migrate the data to a newly upgraded system. That could also be a cause. So yeah, reasons for like upgrade or replacement of a DMS, a database, or a storage provider system is often, I mean, you know it's the DMS version is running out of support. Like for example, Documentum tell you, okay, you need to upgrade from 7.1 because it is running out of support, right? Same thing as with database, like an Oracle database, maybe they are telling you, okay, we cannot support all the really old versions anymore, so you need to upgrade the database version. And then there can be a combination of the DMS version, the new one, which is necessarily needed to be upgraded, does not support the database version underlying, right? So that means, okay, if you need to update that one, you also need to update the database. And so maybe you need to update both. And also, or in regards to that, you may think of, okay, if I need to update both anyway, I maybe also replace the storage provider because, for example, Cetera is also running out of support, right? So it could be a combination of all these, but it could also be only one reason of those to do something. So solutions are there normally, and so I'm from the product team, so I'm talking about the Migration Center, but there are cases and situations where you don't need the Migration Center or to migrate at all, right? And just to mention it here, so often there's a DMS in place upgrade with board tools from the vendor, so that means you don't need to migrate, and that's a better option, to be honest. I mean, if you do not need to migrate, and just do an in-place upgrade, like install or running a setup exe file and install the content server to the new version. That's totally fine, and it's the best option if it's an option, right? But it will definitely inflict a system downtime. So it could be 1 day, 2 days, or it depends how many components you must change, but there is a downtime for sure, right? And so in the past, we had several customers, and it's getting more and more, let's say, a real case that they need to upgrade any version of any component, but they do not, or they really can't afford a downtime, right? It's like online shops we had and other systems like a insurance company. So the system is really needed to be up and running all the time. So, and that's why in-place upgrade does not come as an option here. So the problem is then, yeah, that's not working, so you need to migrate. Migration is easy, I will show you, but of course it takes longer than an in-place upgrade usually, but the beauty is you can do it in the background while the system is up and running, while users are working on it, while there are changes and updates and new documents in that system. You just do it ongoing in the background, and then you can do a switch over at some point when all the data is copied one by one, more or less, right? So you will see the three symbols here, like DMS, it's a server symbol, the database is a database symbol, and we have content storage. You will see those components in other slides as well. So just that you get used to those. Yeah, why Migration Center? Some words about Migration Center, what it is. So Migration Center is a migration product or migration platform. It is 100% out of the box. So basically you buy the tool off the shelf, let's say, you install it, and then you're good to go and can migrate from many different platforms to many different target platforms. So you will not need any additional programming and scripting. Everything is done with the client. Like it's really, I mean, it's easy to use for an administration user of a corresponding platform. Yeah, we have been over 15 years on the market. The product grows and grows, let's say. So far we have over 180 migration passes. So from one system to another. So we have many connectors, and they can be combined with each other. And then we have the no downtime feature, and that's really a big USP because it's not only when you upgrade or you need to change a component in the system. I mean, no downtime is also very usable and sometimes really needed in other migration scenarios as well, right? Yeah, we are fit for regulated systems, just to mention it here. So Migration Center is very capable of audit trails and auditing every action, like when what happened when, so to speak, and so many pharmaceutical companies using the Migration Center because they are really high regulated or high regulations in general. Yeah, the Migration Center technical architecture here, and here you see also the connectors. So yeah, let's start with the connectors. We have many source and target connectors, as you see them, and as I said, they can be combined with each other, right? So we support the whole stack of OpenText, like former Documentum and now OpenText Documentum, eDocs, Content Server, eRoom, as well as emails as sources like Outlook and Notes, also SharePoint from Microsoft, and FileNet from IBM, as well as Alfresco, FirstDoc, FileShare. I mean, generic FileShare, generic database, generic XML, XL, CSV exports. So all those are supported. On the target side, we have similar stack, like we support OpenText, Microsoft, Alfresco, FirstDoc, FileShare, and also Viva, and also some other vendors. And here also we have custom systems. So that means if you have a system which we do not have on that list right now, we are really keen on building a connector for that and then add it to our list. So you benefit, we benefit, like the Migration Center ecosystem benefits from it. In general, Migration Center consists of is built out of three components. Like we have one database, central database, which is managing all the configuration and metadata storage, which has been extracted and transformed. And then besides the central database, we have a job server, which is the gray, let's say the gray bars on the left and right hand side, which includes the connectors. It's also the scalable unit. And then we have one or several Windows clients where you do everything related to the migration, like configuration and transformation rules and everything you do with the client. So yeah, you have, like again said, so this is one or several clients, one central database, and then many job servers. The job servers, you can install as many as you need to really scale up the performance of the migration, so to get a faster speed of migrating documents from one system into another. So yeah, here you see a migration center, like let's call it a typical setup or how it works in general. The central migration center database is in the middle here, and this is really our core component, because it has so much logic regarding transformation rules in it, but also saves, as I said, configuration and metadata. When you do normally, let's say, migrate from one system to another, you basically have a job server here on the left-hand side as a server symbol, and you extract the content from the source system into the migration center system. And that typically is you store the content of that system or of a document on a file share, and the metadata in the database. The metadata is getting stored in a neutralized way. So that means we can, from that point on, we can transform the metadata as needed for being fit to be imported into the target system. So that means really we have so many platforms you can imagine, but once they have been scanned, like we took a snapshot of the system, so to speak, once they are in Migration Center, you can use the data to transform it to really go into any other system, which you need to. So on the right-hand side, we have another job server, and this job server is principally or basically getting the content from a file share, the metadata, the newly transformed or attribute mapped metadata from Migration Center, and then we'll import it into the target system. Right, Migration Center in general, we're speaking of outstanding capabilities. So what we really focus on is our let's say, managing large data volumes. So with other words, Migration Center is built from the start on to manage those large volumes. And so every single connector is built in that regard. So we really try to get the most performance out of every migration. And then we have the metadata transformation engine. That's really a useful tool, because you can reuse transformation rules, and you don't need to dig into XML files or configuration files or change anything in those small units. Like you really have a client, and you click the transformation rules together, and then you can use the transformation engine, which must be huge because we support so many platforms, right? Yeah, besides that, I will show you in more detail the successive Delta migrations and also the in-place update migration today, because that's more the topic we are talking about. So let's focus on Delta migrations first. And also, I mean, I can say that already Delta migrations is basically the answer to do an ongoing migration in the background while users are still working and doing changes on the system, and while the system is still up and running, you do a migration and then successive Delta migrations all the time in the background until then at some day you switch over to a new system. Yeah, speaking of which, Delta feature is exactly what I said. So the preparation for that is basically you need to install so let's imagine first you need to upgrade the DMS version, maybe the database, and maybe the storage, but it doesn't matter here, because simply you need to install the new versions in a new hardware environment. So you install a new DMS server, you install a new database, and you have a new content storage. So everything is like clean from the scratch. So, and then you use the Migration Center to start the migration in the background and really just extract content and import content all the time, like into the new system, right? Just metadata and content. It's really a basic migration, but you do that in the background all the time, and you do it step after step, like again and again and again with so-called reruns, which is then Delta runs, right? So the first time it will get all the big data, it will get the whole thing and import it to a database. But in the meanwhile, depending on the amount, but in the meanwhile, users or systems have created documents and other data in the system, in the source system. So the next one will then only catch those changes and newly created documents and then import into the DMS, right? And by then there will be again like documents and data created or information, which will be taken with a cert delta run and so on and so on. You can imagine the more often you do it, the faster the migration center gets, because it only needs to take part of the documents as they are, and it has scanned already so many, and it gets smaller and smaller and faster. So that is the way the migration center really helps with shrinking the delta window or the switch over window at the end, when you can say, okay, now we shut down the source system and we switch over to the new system. And maybe we do that in some minutes, right, if possible. I mean, it again depends on the amount. If you have, I mean, millions daily created documents, it will not be a minute window. It will maybe an hour window. But if you have like some 1,000, 20, 30, 40,000 a day, it could mean minutes, right? That depends on the setup as well. But we can really shrink it very down to do it like on a Sunday, I don't know, 8 p.m. when even online shops are not very crowded and used at that time, maybe. So here you see a slide where, yeah, without migration center, yeah, it's very symbolic. You would have a big like window where you switch over to a system. Maybe you need to limit the access to make a system read only, so users cannot change and add new documents at that point. And with Migration Center, we can really shrink it to really a small switch over phase, and that's the beauty of the no downtime feature, right? It's sometimes I mean, no downtime is yeah. So frankly speaking, no downtime is a lie. I mean, it's still a downtime of, as I said, minutes, right? Because maybe the switch over takes something. But we also had a customer project where it was just seconds, like it was just an application server rerouting at the end. And so everything was set up. So there were, I mean, it was basically no downtime at that point. Okay, yeah, let me start and jump into the demo, because I want to show you the Migration Center Delta feature on a very basic example. So I will switch to my other system here. And now you should see the Documentum here. I do an example for Documentum. You can also do a Delta feature with all our other connectors as well. So today what I want to do is very simple. I want to scan customer projects cabinet, and then I will import it to the same repository here, because I don't have two repositories, but it should show you that I want to like scan from that repository, and then we imagine that we have another system where I put the files in, right? I will do a one-by-one migration, so nothing changed, no transformation, because this is not the case of, you know, cleanup or enrich documents or anything else. It's just the case one-by-one copy of that system, because I need, you know, to upgrade the versions and hardware maybe and something else. Okay, so let's go and jump into the Migration Center. This is a client, and today I will very briefly show you the functions here. So we go from scanners to migration sets, over migration sets to importers. So first and only thing you normally need to do is to create a job server, or basically tell the Migration Center where the job server is located. So here I use the job server on that machine. Once I see the status is available, I can go on and create a scanner. Okay, so a scanner in Migration Center is basically a configuration of parameters, which then tell the job server to go and extract or scan, we call it scan, the corresponding source system with these parameters, and then extract the content and the metadata into Migration Center. So for Documentum, I just use credentials, the repository, and I use the DQL string select our object ID from DM document where folder what we just seen this customer projects folder. Okay, everything else is untouched more or less. So I will just run that one, and now it will the click on run button will tell the job server to get the job information from the database, and then I can close the client if I like to, because now everything is run in the background, right? So the documents getting processed here, getting scanned. And when that is ongoing, you can also have a look to the jobs overview panel, where you see a progress in a rough percentage. So here you can also at any time, and that's very useful in big migrations, because maybe those scans and imports can, they can have a big impact on the performance if you scale it really up, like to use 12 job servers and each job server running 4 jobs in parallel, for example. It could slow down the system. But at any time, you could just press a button here, pause or stop for any specific job, and that will just stop the job without losing any so far successful scanned or imported data, and also with not losing any information. So the Migration Center really does it in a transactional way, so that you can at any time pause or stop a job and just rerun the scan again after like the system is stable again, or you can get to the most performance again. So then just rerun the scan and everything is fine. So once it disappeared, we have scanned the data now. We have the data here in the scan, like 1,000, nearly 800 documents finished, and that's it. So at this point, we can have a look to the data with view scanned objects and see all the different attributes, as well as some Migration Center system attributes. So in this case, I will not change anything, so we don't need to dig deep into those information. But just a general info, when you see such data, you can always like show and hide columns for your convenience to get a better view, or focus on only some attributes like this. And when you created such a view, you can also always export it to a CSV file and then put it into an Excel file, for example, for communication, or just for, that you store the information that you have it elsewhere stored. It will always be stored in the Migration Center database. So at any time you can look back and see, okay, this is the data we have scanned at that point for any reason. Okay, the next step is then I close the scanners to create a migration set. I already created one, but very basic. Yeah, I gave it a name. I have a path here, like documentum to documentum. In this case, we do a 1-by-1 copy. So I can just go ahead and click on the file scan selection, where I choose my previously run scanner. So I add that to the mix set. I could now exclude objects by values or by advanced filters, but as this is a 1-by-1 migration, I will not do that. So let me select the objects here, and now I have those objects in my mix set. So yeah, again, I will not go into detail here in the features, so I will just show you the basic transformation. And actually, I don't need to go into the features, because a 1-by-1 migration with Migration Center is super easy. Like, you open the transformation rules, it will look like this. You generate the rules with that button. So that does like a 1-by-1 mapping. It gets the source value from the scan and puts that into a rule. And also down here in the system attributes, all I need to do then is only to go to the document types and click again on auto associate, and again on auto associate. So I have now I did the attribute mapping basically 1-by-1, right? That's why I can do it with just click of those buttons. So once stored, we can go and apply transformation and validation. And now it will be validated very fast, because it's done inside the database layer of Migration Center. So we validated those, and now we can go on and create an importer to import the documents. I have to say, let me show you one more thing. I prepared that mix set to change one value, actually, because I do not want to import the documents in the same cabinet or folder path, right? So I forgot to mention that. So here I just take the original object link, so the whole folder path, but I will just put a new cabinet in front of it, like /demo import for this purpose. So that's the only thing I change, actually. Everything else is with a simple get value 1-by-1 function. Okay, just to mention that. So again, let's go to importers, open the importer here. Looks very familiar or similar to the scanner region there. So again, I put some credentials here, DM admin, password, repository name, and I take the import objects in here. You can also, in general, you can also import relations, comments, and audit trails, which would mean a real one-by-one migration, right? So especially Documentum, but also many other connectors, but not all, will do a really 100% or more or less 100% one-by-one migration. So you can maintain audit trails and comments and relations and virtual documents and everything. Okay, once the parameters are fine, I just add the mixset to the importer, and then I click on run again. And now if I click on history, we would see that it will import the documents, and we can also have a look into the Documentum system, where I should have a demo import cabinet, right, with the same folder pairs like in our source folder here. Right. So again, imagine that is not in the same repository. That would be another server, because it's our new updated in terms of version and maybe hardware and maybe database server. But it would look like the same, right? It's the same approach, just another Documentum server in this case. It could also be, as I said, with other systems. Documentum is just an example because I have the system here ready to be used for the demo. Okay, so while we wait to let that finish, we jump back to the slides where we are, and we are talking about another case or two other cases, or with other words, features in Migration Center when you do not want, like for several reasons, do not want a real migration to happen, right? Maybe you say, okay, the storage system will not change anyway, or any other component in that system will not change anyway. Why should I do a real migration with all different things like metadata and content storage creation and everything? So, and also it takes time to migrate everything one by 100%, right? So then our do not copy content or NCC adapter, no content copy adapter comes into play. So with that adapter, we can do such a migration without actually moving the content, and that will really speed up the migration, make it very fast, because the content storage extraction and import or ingestion of content is sometimes the slowest part of the whole process, right? So in this case, the Migration Center is there to just I mean, it looks very similar to what we just have seen. Like you, again, have a scanner and parameters, but you just use a different connector, which is then more or less excluding the storage. So you just get the metadata and import the metadata into the new DMS installation on a new system. And so you save a lot of time, processings, and money at that point, because often the content storage can be the same or stays the same. You keep the content storage provider anyway. So that is a real approach with Migration Center and fully supported. We did it a lot in the past because it makes totally sense if that's an option, and this content storage is not changing at all. Right, no content copy migration. The next one is you have a new storage provider. So then we have also another connector, which we call in-place migration or in-place adapter. So that means, again, more or less the same. You scan a system, then you just change the content storage attributes. So, for example, you go from, the example here is replace Centera. So maybe you want to, or the Centera in general is discontinued. So you want to replace the Centera with a file share or a SAN storage or a ECS, right? And in that case, Migration Center can be used just to do that. So the metadata and the documents, objects will stay in place. So Migration Center will scan them, but it will not like move them or change them. It will only change the content storage information, and then with another import, so an in-place import, then we will change only the content location, and the content will be moved in the background. So the objects and the document and the metadata stay the same, but the content file or files will be moved from the original old storage system to the new one. So again, this is very helpful in saving a lot of time and processings, because we just move the content from one storage to another. But especially these Centera cases are lately like more modern, because this Centera is getting out of support very soon, and so this is an option just to move the content, but not to move the application server, the database, or the objects or metadata at all, right? Right, with that slide, I will just go back to our demo. So because I want to show you the Delta feature. So now it has finished. It imported nearly 1,800 documents in whatever, a minute or two. And then we just go ahead and have a look. Like, just refresh it here. And yeah, let's do an example of, so imagine this is our new system. So we have the data from that, like from this snapshot, right? Like 10 minutes ago. So that means when in the meanwhile, user could have changed anything or added something to the system, right? So I will just do that and change something here in the source, maybe go into the, change the customer ID and put a 123 in here. And maybe I also add a document, because that's what people do. That's what will happen when the system is still up and running. So call it new document. So, and then we try to pick them up. So that would then mean, like, we finished the first wave of migration. We did the first initial scan, the big load, let's say, and now we or anyone changed something on the systems. So we just go again through the processes here, like do the scanner, like run the exact same scanner there, the same parameters. And you already see it has one object processed. And it should finish very soon. Right, so finished, 2 objects processed, so one should be new, right, and one should be changed. You can also have a look to the log file, where it says, okay, these objects already exist, right? All the objects which it has already scanned will be ignored, because they did not change at all. And then we have one new and one update in our log file here. Right, and it's very simple and straightforward. So now we've scanned the updates and newly created objects. We go again into the migration set, and this time I will just copy the mixset here and call it something with delta, maybe like delta 1, and we'll just go again to file scan selection, assign the 2 newly scanned or changed and updated files here, click on select objects. And then I have the same configuration, same rules, so everything one by one. And I have that delta mixset here, right? I do the same thing, like apply transformation and validation. And then I go on and take the same importer. You can also copy those configurations if you like, but there's no need in that case. So I will just click on run, add that mixset to my importer, and then click on run again. And now it should be very fast, like 2 objects, and yeah, finish the second or the first delta scan, if you like, right? So you can imagine I can do it again and again. So let's just do it. So I run again the scanner, because I don't know if anything has changed in the meanwhile. So it will just check the content, or the contents in general. Again, if something changed, it would pop up here. But in the meanwhile, I can only already go on and like do then another import in that case. So those both are finished, and then I do it again and again, right? You can imagine this is like the Delta feature migration center. You don't really need to do much, because you basically reuse all the pre-made configuration or the pre-run configuration. So everything you did at the first initial run will also be at the second run, and you can just do it on a regular basis. For example, every Monday or every day, right? And then it will just get all the newly created and changed objects at any time. And also interesting maybe, very useful is the scheduler. So you can also set up a scheduler to do that what you just did manually, to do that automatically. So that means you give it a scanner like our demo documentum scanner. We have an importer, which is our demo documentum importer, and then you give it a mixset, which is our demo documentum to documentum mixset, and then you just click on OK, and it will exactly do what we did. So run the scanner. If there are something new or it says something new, copy that mixset to a Delta mixset, import that mixset. So, and then the data gets updated in the target system. So in that case, so imagine we have, I don't know, 5 million or 50 million documents. We just do the initial load, we do a delta, we do another delta, and we do another delta. As like we do as much delta scans or as many delta scans as we need, because if the document is getting smaller and smaller, you can imagine at some point here, we could basically say, okay, now we do the switch over and we switch to the new system immediately, and then we work on that system. So maybe user will not even recognize that there was a migration in the background, right? And it's maybe even not that this is a new system, because it's the same system but just updated in version, or it's just another database, or it's just another storage. So the user at this point, if you like, cannot. I mean, you can do it in the way that the user will not know at all that there was a migration ongoing and anything changed. So another look to the migration set. Here we have our status, like, okay, we have these 1,760 imported. We have another delta scan with 2, and there could be more delta scans there, right? But then we are basically sure, okay, everything is in the system. So let's have a look as well. Maybe, so I changed those both files in here. And so, yeah, you see we have a new document, which is newly created, and we have, we should have, or should see a value in here, because I changed the customer ID to 123, right? And that's the delta feature. So now I could set up, as I said, as a scheduler, and I would synchronize those both, in this case, both cabinets, but then in the real world, I would synchronize both repositories with each other in the background without basically doing anything, just do the pre-configuration. Okay, with that, I will go back to the slide. And with that slide, I will just show you that Migration Center, or I did show you in the demo, but the Migration Center, we really operate in 6 or phases, right? So I already told you about that. So we have the analyze, extract, or /scan phase. Then we have organize phase, where you can put every single or different documents into different migration sets or mix sets. You saw that in the demo. So, and then it's a transform, but especially the organize is that, as I said, if you have like 50 million documents, you do not, or you might not want to migrate those 50 millions at one big initial load, right? You more or less might to have like 10 million packages, or even smaller, 5 million packages, because just it gives you control and makes sure that everything works like expected, right? So you take the first 5 million, put that into one mixset, you migrate those 5 millions, and then you have already, like, really, you can tick it off, like 5 millions are in there, and then you do it step by step and step by step set, so you can really make sure that everything is going properly in a controlled way. You can do 50 million at one time, also possible, of course, but it's many, so I guess you want to cut it into pieces, into human readable and organizable pieces, and that's where we have the migration sets. Right, and then talking about transformation, attribute mapping, validation, and correction. So in our case here, we just do a one-by-one migration, like a copy from one repository to another. So we don't really need to do a huge transformation or many changes. So this phase will basically be one. So we do set up a one-by-one mapping. We do validate it against the target type, object type definition, but they should be equal to the ones in the source system anyway. So we don't need to correct here, I guess. So in this case, we just go and do the import, right? But in case you have transformations, or you need to do transform attribute values because you're coming from different systems, not talking about components like database storage and DMS, right? But when you come from, I don't know, Documentum and you go to OpenText Content Server, then we make use of the transformation engine and the transformation and mapping tools to get the data into the right and appropriate form to fit into the target system, right? But in this case, this is really only one phase. So we do scan, we do organize, maybe, and then we just go and import, and that several times in several data runs to get the data finally in our Documentum or DMS in general, and then do the switch over at some point in time when everything is migrated and like set up for being used as a new system. So yeah, to summarize everything, Migration Center really migrates, if you like, it migrates ongoing in the background, right? In general, it migrates in the background. I mean, because even in a normal migration or consolidation scenario, you just click the button to make the Migration Center work like overnight, right? Or all day, maybe 24 hours anyway, because you want to migrate very fast or as fast as possible into a new system. But what it means here, really, you can set up as a scheduler, and you can even, I mean, you don't need to look at it even more, right? You just set up the scheduler, the scanner, the mixset, and the importer. You click a button, and it will synchronize the systems or like copy the systems and then synchronize it like that. You have really two, more or less the same repositories with the same content and information. Right, with the Delta functionality, it makes really possible, as I said already, to shrink the switch over window, so the time window, to a very narrow one, a very small one. Like, as I said, from my experience, we had projects where it was just seconds, but it will be only hours at the end, even if you have a big system, right? So, and that really makes it like no downtime overall. Yeah, I had also talked about that even faster. No content copy adapter allows us to not touch or move the content. So the migration center will just reallocate the content on the original file store. For example, when you want to get rid of a Centera or any other storage system which is out of support, or not even supported by the DMS vendor, or even not supported by the vendor itself anymore. So that's really a fast way to do that. And then we have the in-place upgrade migration to change only specific things. In that case, you only change the content storage. But here to say, I mean, you can change any kind of attribute with an in-place upgrade, right? We have that in-place upgrade or upgrade importer for OpenText and for Documentum. So if you want to do a restructuring of folders or of ACLs or of user objects and whatever, you can use the in-place upgrade as well for cleanup, because maybe you want to get rid of attributes because they are not used anymore or even not filled correctly, or you want just to like migrate part of the document, so you can really do a cleanup. And you can also do an enrichment, which is then really to improve the quality of the data inside an existing repository. So that you say, okay, maybe we need a new object type definition, but also we need to improve the quality of attribute values. So then you use the in-place upgrade or in-place connector also. And in that relation, sometimes you need to only change the content storage. But when you're already using the in-place upgrade connector, you may say, okay, then I can also just do a cleanup or enrichment anyways, because I do that in-place thing anyway. Okay, but with that said, that's more or less it from my side. So if you have any question, of course, ask me any question. And also, if you don't have any now, you can all ask me later. But with that, I hand over to Mark again.
Right, Mike, thank you for the presentation. And yes, as Mike mentioned, we are about to get to our Q&A session. But before that, let me introduce you our dedicated product website, which is migrating-center.com. And on there, you can find even more information on almost every use case Mike just described, or also the standard classical migration, and more in-depth information about our product, like product features, case study from reference customers. We have a content migration blog. We offer our webinars, our past webinars, as webinar recordings for free. And we've just developed a connector matrix in which you can choose your source and your target system, and then you can see the individual capabilities that apply for that individual migration path. And most importantly, we offer a free evaluation copy, which is a free trial of Migration Center with a 14-day time period in which you can try the full capability software on your individual setting. And yeah, all there's left to say, thank you for attending. We hope to see you again soon, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Yeah, also from my side, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time watching this. And if you have any questions, as I said, reach out to me or to us. We are happy to answer everything. Thank you from my side.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.